What is going on, everybody? I am back with another podcast, and I know it's been a minute. I know last time I posted was probably about 2 months ago at this point, but I think that I have something that I'm working on that should you guys should see very very soon. So that's the reason for uh, just the delay and not really having a podcast. Last time I believe I put one out was before the draft. So, obviously I've been active on social media. I've been active on my Instagram. I've been active on my Twitter. So I just wanted to come on here and talk about a few things about the Eagles and try and get this thing started as camp is, I believe, 32 days away. Let's pull an Eagles player for this. I did this for the draft. Let's do this for training camp. A Rasul Douglas amount of days away from the start of training camp. So could have gone Reed Blankenship there, but I like going former Eagle players. So Rasul Douglas amount of days. So I just want to come on here and talk about a few things regarding the Eagles, regarding the state of the team, regarding the expectations, and just a few things that we can expect or at least look out for going into the 2023 season. So yeah, that's just wanted to get that out of the way before we get things started. So yeah. The first thing I wanted to come on here and talk about is the running back position. I think it's very, very interesting what the Philadelphia Eagles did this offseason. Obviously, you let Miles Sanders go, which I believe is undeniably the right decision. I think Miles Sanders, he's a talented player. Yes, he can be an explosive runner, but I think, um, I think he was a lot of his success last year was a product of the Eagles' offensive line, and I don't think he will be as good in Carolina as he was here. Carolina does have a good offensive line, but it wasn't nearly as dominant. They don't have the running quarterback factor like the Eagles have with Jalen Hurts. Just so many factors. So I think they did the right job not paying Miles Sanders, and they went out there and placed him. I want to talk about who they brought in. I want to talk about basically what they did, and I want to talk about the players in general because I do have an opinion. I've been vocal about that opinion. If you saw my Eagles by category, I had two running backs in the underrated and overrated, and I'm here to talk about that, maybe go more in depth about that. So the first player I want to talk about here is DeAndre Swift, just because I think he's going to get the bulk of the carries. I think Swift is a player that the Eagles are high on. It's been reported that they are high on. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN has gone on record multiple times saying he's a player the Eagles view as more than a rental player and somebody that they would like to extend at the right cost. There's no doubting Swift's explosiveness. There's no doubting his talent. The thing with DeAndre Swift, to me, and what pops out on tape is he's very reckless in the open field. His vision isn't great. He's a player that, yeah, he can break off a 45 yard run, but he can also turn what should be a 40 to 45 yard run into a 10 yard run or a 5 yard run. And he's just very inconsistent with that, especially in the open field. He's a guy that just makes the wrong decision. And obviously, it's tough. You're not going to be perfect when it comes to running with the ball and having the ball in open field. That's obvious, especially for a running back because you get it much earlier in the play and you have to make up more ground. So it's obviously, I'm not saying it's something that is not fixable, something that is a major issue because he's still an NFL player. He's still a really talented player that will get his shot in Philly, no doubt. But I just think I don't see the consistency to where he absolutely burns Rashad Penny, who's the other running back that I'm going to talk about. And I think when it comes to talent, I think Rashad Penny is up there with one of the best running backs in the league in terms of talent. When he's on the field, he is ridiculous. He is efficient. He is a power runner, north-south runner. He is supremely talented. Of course, the issue, he's rarely on the field due to injury. So that's why the Eagles made this trade. Again, Swift has also had his injury concerns, but it's definitely not to the extent of Penny. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. I do think DeAndre Swift, at least going into camp, is viewed as the running back one. They have more kind of more put into Swift. And now, if Swift were to leave this offseason, they'll get a fourth round pick, or likely get a fourth round pick compensatory back for him. So, and that's obviously what they traded. So they practically traded, if Swift isn't signed through 2024 and beyond, you practically traded a 2024 fourth round pick for a 2025 fourth round pick and for a year of a running back. So, they obviously, like I said before, and it's been reported that they view him as a player that they like, obviously, and they believe he'll give them production out of the backfield in the passing game that they haven't had. Obviously, Kenny Gainwell's a nice, prototypical third down back, but he's not going to play every down. And DeAndre Swift is a guy that can play every down. So, that's kind of that with Swift. That's kind of that with the running back position in general. I think it's clear cut who the top two guys are. Kenny Gainwell is a guy that, had a pretty disappointing, I guess you can say, regular season. Obviously turned it up in the playoffs, but wasn't great in the season. Coming off his rookie season, you could say expected more in the regular season. Obviously, playoffs, different story. If you show up in the playoffs, listen, I mean, nobody's going to deny that. Nobody's going to say, or complain about that. So, yeah, that's kind of that with the running backs. They didn't draft anybody. They didn't sign any undrafted free agent running backs, I don't believe. They signed Kennedy Brooks last year out of Oklahoma. They have Trey Sermon, still have Boston Scott, but, he's a kick returner, so, I mean, he kind of has his role. I'll tell you this, 2 times a year you'll see him. You'll see him 2 times a year, so that's kind of that. That's kind of that with the running backs. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the Eagles, obviously, in the first round, came out with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, two defensive studs, two defensive players that will hopefully be on this defense for a very long time. I wanted to talk about what should you expect out of them in their rookie season, what the expectation should be. It's obviously hard to gauge with how much talent is on this defensive line. I think, just going off the top of my head here, I think off the edge, Nolan Smith will probably be more of a prototypical edge rusher. You obviously have Hassan Reddick, but he usually plays. I believe Reddick and Smith will almost always be playing on the opposite side. So Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, more. I mean, he does play some edge, but he's more of a kind of slot inside defensive end. And another thing we have to take into factor is what Sean Desai runs. He's sort of runs a similar defense to Gannon. He's much more aggressive on third down, statistically. There's obviously, differences in the coverages, but I believe in the trenches, it's pretty similar. He likes to stack edge rushers on the same side, though. So who knows? Maybe we see maybe Sweat and Reddick on the same side. We saw it with Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn in Chicago when he was the defense coordinator over there. Time to time they'll be, on the same side, rushing on the same side. So maybe we see that again. The Eagles have the talent to do that, to where you can have them both on the same side, and you still have talent over there. So both will get reps, both will get snaps. Obviously, Smith will be the one. He'll be the edge rusher. Smith will be in rotation. They'll probably see their play increase as the year goes on. But I think who to expect more out of, that's kind of a question. I think it's undoubtedly Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter, there's less obstacles in the way of him getting snaps. Eagles lose Javon Hargrave. They get Jalen Carter. So Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams. Milton Williams weird because he can also play defensive ends. So I mean, he can play defensive tackle. So there's ways where he can play and it won't necessarily affect the other two defensive tackles. So uh, obviously those four, and then you have the rotational guys. Marlon Tuipulotu. I don't think he's typically good. He was pretty bad last year, and he didn't play at all in 2021. So Tuipulotu, Contavious Street is a guy that they signed. Of course, they got Moro Ojomo in the seventh round. Maybe he makes the roster. So there's guys, but Jalen Carter is pretty clear cut the second, and at worst third, and definitely has a chance to be the number one defensive tackle on this team by the end of the season. So I think by far, in terms of production, in terms of snaps, in terms of just impact on the team, I think you should expect more from Jalen Carter going into this season. And now I'm not saying Nolan Smith won't have a role, but I think you should expect more from Jalen Carter, at least going into the rookie seasons. Now you can talk about who's in the better situation to succeed long term. Obviously, that's a different question. But I just think in terms of next year, Jalen Carter, you should expect more out of him. He's probably the better player. Obviously, Nolan Smith would have gone higher if he could stay healthy in college. That's an issue with their issue surrounding him. So, I just think Carter is the more talented player. I think he's in a better situation and a better position to get more snaps and more playing time. So that's where I'm at with this. I think Jalen Carter will be better than the rookie in both of their rookie seasons. Most of the Philadelphia Eagles depth chart and kind of who will be playing where is set in stone. We know who most of the positions are, and we kind of have an idea who's going to be starting at safety, but it's not set in stone at all to me. I think if you wanted me to give kind of a percentage, I think it's about I think Reed Blankenship is going to be a starter. He's going to be a starter on this defense. They view him highly. Been with the team the longest. He played well last year. There's really no way around it. He played really well last year when asked to play. When C.J. Gardner-Johnson went down, he played well. So he's going to be a starter. He's a guy they like. He's a guy, when they signed, they liked, and we really, we had an idea that this was going to be a guy that could emerge as a starter, kind of like Marcus Epps did, but hopefully he's better than Epps. I liked Epps. I thought Epps was overhated for the most part. I thought he was better than he got credit for, but I think Blankenship definitely has a chance to be better than Epps and should. So there's one starter. The second is interested. I think right now, leader in the clubhouse, it's Terrell Edmunds. Edmunds can play, and when he's on the field, when he's healthy, he plays every snap. That's one of the best parts about Edmunds. He's always on the field. He's a high energy guy. He can play. He's is he great? He's not great, but he's more than good enough to take this second spot and be a competent starter. So that was a good find. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse right now. I think Sidney Brown's a future starter on this defense. I think he is. That's why Terrell Edmunds, he's probably going to be here for 1 year. He can play special teams, so he's probably has a roster spot locked up. Even if he does lose the job, he can play special teams, so he'll stay. So I think Sidney Brown can definitely make a push in training camp. I think he can definitely make a push throughout the season, maybe sort of like what Reed Blankenship did. But Brown is a really exciting player. He's a ball hawk. He's not a great tackler, really. He's actually, I'm not pretty bad, but he's not good tackler. That's obviously something that can be fixed. He's a rookie player, so I'm not putting out a verdict. But so yeah, he's a player that can make a push. He's a very interesting player, very exciting player, and a very smart player too. A very smart player, very smart smart person. So he's a guy that I like. He's a guy that will be started at some point, and could be as soon as week one. Really, could be as late as next season or the season after. So we'll see. But I think one player set in stone starter, and you probably have Terrell Edmonds starting at least week one, and then Sidney Brown can make a push. Justin Evans is interesting. He is really talented, but he's never on the field. Like, he's always injured. When he was healthy last year with the Saints and limited playing time, he looks good. I believe he's a former second round pick, I want to say. Hold up. Let me look it up. Just because I believe he was a second round pick. Justin Evans. It's gonna show me. Oh yeah, second round pick in 2017 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I liked him on film. I thought he was good on film. He just can't stay healthy. It's just one of those cases where he's never stayed healthy. He's had serious injury after serious injury. It's sad. So yeah, he's a talented player, but I don't expect much. Kevon Wallace, I think. I actually, if you followed me for a while, you've seen some slander from Kevon Wallace. I've been, I don't want to say a hater of his, but I've been a critique of his game. He actually played pretty well towards the end of last season when he had to play. So I'll leave him alone. I don't think he's making the roster, but he was actually not bad towards the end of last season. So they threw him in the slot because Josiah Scott was so bad at times last year that they put him in the slot when C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Avonte Maddox were out. So yeah, he wasn't bad really for all of last season, but especially towards the end of the season, he actually played pretty well. So I'll leave him alone. I don't think he's gonna make the roster. He's a free agent after this year. Might as well cut ties with him now because you're not gonna re-sign him. So I don't think he makes the roster. I think he's probably the fourth safety right now. They already cut Andre Chachere, so I don't think they plan on keeping more than 3 safeties because they have so many cornerbacks. That's another thing I'm going to talk about. I'll go into the cornerbacks. So I think they're going to keep quite a few cornerbacks because I'll get into that. But yeah, I think their safeties are set in stone. For the most part, you have 3 guys. One of them is going to be a starter. 2 of them are battling it out, and then maybe they keep a 4th safety, Justin Evans, or Kevon Wallace. Am I forgetting somebody? I don't think I am. I don't think I'm forgetting somebody. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I believe the last thing I want to talk about today is the cornerback position. We know who's going to start. It's going to be Slay Bradbury and then Maddox in the slot. You trade a 3rd round pick next year to move up into the 4th round and select Keely Ringo, who's only 20 years old. So he's going to probably take a few years to develop. He's a guy that I view more as a safety, but they view him as a cornerback. He still has time to develop. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter what I view him as now because he won't be the same player in a few years when they probably call on his name. So, it doesn't really matter. He's a guy they'll develop. You sign Eli Ricks as an undrafted free agent. Don't know if he'll make the roster because you have the 3 cornerbacks, then you have the 2 gunners in Job and McPherson, really good special teamer. McPherson was excellent last year. He was good in 2021. He was better this year, or this past year. So that's 5. You're going to keep, so those are 5 guys that are going to get playing time. You're keeping Ringo on the roster. So that leaves Greedy Williams, who you signed, former 2nd round pick. You signed in free agency, and at the time he looked to be your next man up cornerback, right? Now I don't think he has a spot on this roster, and I think he's cut. So I kind of want to talk about him. I left him off in my way too early 53-man roster prediction that I put out probably a month ago at this point. So I left him out there, and I got some comments, kind of confused because yeah, he is a talented player. He's a guy that you would think makes the roster, and probably would make a ton of rosters in the NFL. Obviously, he signed here. He signed here, not thinking Keely Ringo was gonna pop up out of nowhere in the fourth round. He signed here not knowing you were gonna get an Eli Ricks. He has competition here, and doesn't really play special teams, so doesn't really give you any value there. It's not like he can beat out Job or McPherson. Um, so yeah, he's the odd man out, and I think he's cut. And I don't think he's really gonna make a push here because you're not letting go Ringo. Ringo's staying on the roster because I mean, let's be real here. One, they're not going to do it, but let's say magically if they did, he's not making it through waivers, and you're going to lose him, and you trade up the round pick for nothing compared to no guaranteed money. His contract is structured. Here, let me pull up the exact contract structure because it's structured for him to make no money and for you to cut him, and there be literally no penalty. So he's a talented player. Both sides, it makes sense to let him go because one, he's not probably not going to play, and two, let him go and let him go play somewhere else because he's still miraculous. He's 25 years old. He'll be 26 in a few months, but 600,000 dead cap. His cap hit is 1.3 million, 1.29 to be exact. And it's 600,000 guaranteed, and it's guaranteed at signing. So it's, I mean, like you can cut him. They'll cut him. They'll afford to cut him. So I want to talk about that, just to get that out of the way. But I also want to talk about just these guys that they brought in. Eli Ricks was to most a surefire first round pick. After the 2022 draft concluded, and just going into the 2022 season for college football, he was viewed as a surefire first round pick. He was viewed as a top 10 pick to some. So, I believe he had some injuries and he just wasn't very good last year. And, I didn't think he was going undrafted. Obviously, I thought he was going to get drafted, but his stock obviously dropped. He wasn't a first really or second round pick. I thought he could go in like the day three. I didn't think he was going to go undrafted. But you bring him in, you sign Mekhi Garner. Don't really want to leave anybody out here. So you have Josiah Scott on the roster. I think he's cut. Tristan McCullum. Don't really think he's a threat here. So yeah, you have players. Mario Goodrich. Mario Goodrich, another guy, another undrafted guy. He can also play the slot. So I think he's sorry, I lost my tab here. Sorry for the noise, but it's not gonna let me, right? I think I just lost my tab. Okay, no, it's back. So yeah, so he's another guy that they like. I actually think he makes the roster over Josiah Scott this year, as their seventh cornerback. I think they keep. Hold up, let me. This is so out of whack. Sorry, but I think he's a guy that can make a roster. Let me pull up my roster prediction from, I believe, right after the draft. Yeah, about a month ago, 2 months ago. I had them keeping 6. I had them, I didn't have them keeping another slot cornerback in case Maddox goes down, and I had them keeping Justin Evans. So, just you can swap one of those out. Like you could swap out Goodrich or Jobe for Evans. I think it's probably more likely. So, yeah, you have that. So, they have guys. I think Garner will go to the practice squad. I assume Ricks will make it through waivers. If he doesn't, I guess that could be surprising, but he'd have to be on a roster. If you can't claim somebody and put them on your practice squad, so you have to put them on your roster. So I assume Ricks will make it. So, yeah, so they have some young talent. So, yeah, let me get to the point. They have some young talent in this cornerback room with Ringo, 20. He's going to be 21 by the time the season starts, but he's been working out already. He's been training. He's been with the team. So, 20. Ricks, young. Garner, he could be a guy. Who knows? Could be a guy, but I'm not expecting much out of him. Goodrich could end up being a slot guy that could take over. Who knows when Maddox is going to leave. I think Maddox will be here for a few years at least. So there is some young talent on this team. They're in this cornerback room, rather, and there are some guys that probably are going to replace a 33-year-old Darius Slay, or 32-year-old Darius Slay, and a 30-year-old James Bradbury at some point in the near future. Obviously, you handed out two big contracts. Bradbury's is structured differently. Bradbury, there's an opt out, where it is because cap hits are like 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, and then there's like an opt out, and then that's when a lot of the cap comes in. A lot of that contract ends up hitting, so you don't have as much kind of hooked onto him or put on him, but you do have a lot on Slay. Slay's a guy that you pay a lot, and you have a lot on him. They extended him. They had that whole saga where we thought he left. We thought they cut him outright, and it was released, or it was announced that they were going to cut him and release him, but then he was never released, and the people were speculating, okay, why hasn't this been announced? And then got reported like what, hour 2 hour later that he's back. So that was obviously weird, and then they came to terms on an extension. So yeah, there's some talent on this roster, at the cornerback position, a lot of young talent, and you know they are gearing up for the post Slay and post Bradbury era, and this is a good start because you have guys now that could develop, and you're starting to form something here. So yeah, that's kind of something I wanted to point out. I think Greedy Williams is cut. Like I said, I think you'll see some guys on the practice squad. But yeah, that's all for today. Just wanted to put something out. Podcast should be back. We're nearing training camp. Like I said, we're still Douglas amount of days. So about a month away from training camp, and we'll start to see some, maybe some late offseason acquisitions, something. And as we get into camp, I'll talk about camp. I'll talk about some takeaways from camp. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I am back to making podcasts, making videos, so it's exciting. And yeah, I do have something that you guys will see in the near future here that I'm cooking up, you can say. So yeah, you guys will see that at some point. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.